The Lord be with you, my brothers and sisters. I am not surprised when you tell me that the Eucharist does not seem to say much to you. That is why we will try to help you appreciate the Eucharist that you celebrate with the help of the parables and the Bible. I thought that I would start with a parable called the parable of the TB medicine, which will be our first episode. 100 years ago, there was no cure for TB or tuberculosis. Anyone suffering from this dreaded disease, it meant sure death. It is not more so today. The medicine is available, yet patients are dying. Why? The possible reasons could be the following. 1, it could be that they are not aware of the existence of the medicine. 2, it could be that they lack the awareness of their medical critical condition. Therefore, in such a case, they medicate themselves, thinking that they just have a chest cold or chest pain. 3, it could be that the medicine is costly. 4, it could be that the patients do not abide by the doctor's prescription. The doctors tell them to take this on an empty stomach. It proposes a certain amount of dosage, or they apply it on the outside because it is unpalatable when taken orally. 5th, it could be that they do not maintain a proper diet. That is, they take the medicine and also smoke and drink. And lastly, it could be that they do not place themselves in an environment that will help them to get strong and healthy. Now we will see how this parable helps us to understand our approach to the Eucharist. 2022 years ago, there was no cure for sin. Jesus had not come. But when Jesus came, he went about giving hope, life, and light. And ultimately he died and rose to free us from sin. And he has left us the church and the sacraments, especially the sacrament of the Eucharist and the sacrament of reconciliation, to continue his work of liberation and to help us grow in holiness. And yet, after celebrating the Eucharist, we Catholics are dying spiritually. Why? Very briefly, let us see how these factors could be applied to the Eucharist. The first factor, we said, it could be that they are not aware of the existence of the medicine. As far as the Eucharist is concerned, it could be that we are not aware of what the Eucharist actually is. It is something that we are forced to attend. Yes, that's the word, attend, watch, while not knowing what and why are certain actions performed out there, and we are not supposed to have much to do with our daily lives. The second factor connected with the TB medicine is that could be that they lack the awareness of their medical or critical condition. Therefore, in this connection, it could be they're relying on themselves and thinking that they have a chest cold, they medicate themselves accordingly. Now, the best argument for this is to refer to the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 16 and following. For you say, I am rich, I have prospered, and I need nothing, not knowing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. So because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew you out of my mouth. Therefore I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, that you may be rich, and white garments to clothe you, and to keep the shame of your nakedness from being seen, and salve to anoint your eyes, that you may see. The third factor, we said, it could be that the medicine is costly. Far from it. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 55, verse 1, we read, come buy wine and milk without money and without cost. The fourth factor, referring to the TB medicine parable, it could be that the patients do not abide by the doctor's prescription. It it has to be taken, we said, on an empty stomach, or they did not take the proper dose, or they apply it on the outside since it is unpalatable when taken orally. Referring to the Eucharist, it could be that we do not know what we need to do in celebrating the Eucharist and the real purpose behind those words and actions. We shall deal with this in one of our later sessions. It could be they did not maintain a proper diet. They take the medicine and also smoke and drink. The fifth factor. Applying to the Eucharist, we could say that perhaps we do not have our loyalties in place, which could affect the celebration of the Eucharist, making it fruitless. St. Paul tells us in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 14, those who are unspiritual, that is, materialistic or worldly, do not receive the gifts of God, of His Spirit, for they are foolishness to them, and they are unable to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. And St. John, in his first letter, chapter 2, verse 15 to 17, explains what this worldliness means. Do not love the world, he says, or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passes away, and the lust of it, but he who does the will of God abides forever. And the last factor, applying first to the TB medicine, we said that it could be that they do not place themselves in an environment that can help them to grow strong and healthy. Brothers and sisters, in the Old Testament, at the Passover meal in Egypt, we realized that that meal was a family meal, it was a community meal. And they had it as a community and to make the passage as a community for fear of being attacked by wild tribes or by wild animals. All this is a symbol of the wild tribes and wild animals are today the bad influence, materialism, consumerism, hedonism, individualism. If you look at the early Christians in chapter 2 of the Acts of the Apostles, verses 44 onwards, we see that they devoted themselves to the apostles and teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done to the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common, thus forming their own environment to counter the influence of the world. My dear brothers and sisters, you will see for yourselves how the Word of God actually reads our minds, our thoughts, and our lives. And this will really surprise you. So, may this episode help us to understand our present situation as far as celebrating the Eucharist. And we'll see you next for the next episode.